Ever find a hole in your favorite sweater and think, I don't think that was moths?
Mm-hmm.
Well, get ready to learn about a way more common culprit,
Yeah,
carpet beetles.
that's right.
Today, we're going to deep dive into the world of these tiny little guys that might be living in your home right now.
It could be.
We've got an excerpt from a Nevada pest control guide all about them.
Oh, cool.
And trust me, this is a lot more interesting than it sounds.
It is really fascinating stuff.
So most people, I don't think, realize how common carpet beetles are.
Right.
Like way more common than clothes moths.
Absolutely. And more diverse, too.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Forget moths.
Mm-hmm.
Carpet beetles.
Ah.
They're the real silent destroyers just lurking in our closets and pantries.
I know. It's like a whole secret society of mini munchers just chomping away.
Yeah.
Okay, so the guide mentions that there are all kinds of carpet beetles,
Mm-hmm.
but they all belong to this family.
The Dermestidae family.
Dermestidae.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we get into the specifics of like the different types and all that, let's talk about their life cycle.
Okay.
So, you find an egg,
Right.
it hatches into a larva.
A tiny little bristly worm.
Oh, gross.
Yeah. And then it pupates.
Uh-huh.
And eventually it'll emerge as an adult beetle.
Okay, so it's those larvae that are the real problem here.
Yeah, the adults are actually mostly harmless. They mostly feed on pollen and nectar.
Really?
Yeah.
But the larvae...
But they are voracious.
Voracious.
Yeah, they love anything animal-based, wool, silk feathers, even leather.
So that hole in my sweater.
Could definitely be them.
Oh, man, that makes me want to check my closet right now.
You probably should.
Okay, so we know they're out there munching away on our stuff.
Yeah.
But the guide highlights 4 specific species of carpet beetle that are the most common.
Right.
So let's start with the black carpet beetle.
Okay.
Because, well, it just sounds ominous.
Rightfully so. The black carpet beetle is like the tank of the carpet beetle world.
A tank.
Yeah, shiny black can grow up to 5 millimeters long.
Wow.
And their larvae gets even bigger. Yeah, and they don't mess around with tiny little nibbles. They'll eat big gaping holes in fabric.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So what should we be looking for to identify these black carpet beetles?
Well, the adults are fairly distinctive with that shiny black exterior,
Mm-hmm.
but the larvae can be a little harder to spot.
Okay.
They're kind of carrot-shaped.
Carrot shape.
Yeah, and they have this tough, shiny exterior too, and they like to hide
Oh, great.
in dark, undisturbed places, closets, attics, under furniture, those kinds of spots.
So if you're seeing large holes in your clothes,
Right.
and you find these little carrot-shaped critters lurking around,
You got it.
you know who to blame.
Yep.
Okay, so black carpet beetles, check.
Check.
What about the common carpet beetle?
Okay.
Is it as straightforward as its name suggests?
Kind of. They're a bit smaller than the black carpet beetles.
Okay.
And instead of being pure black, they have this mottled appearance with white and orange scales.
Interesting.
Yeah, and their damage is a little more subtle than the black carpet beetle. Well, think slits in carpeting rather than those big gaping holes.
Ugh. Sneaky little devil.
I know, right?
Okay, so 2 down, 2 to go.
Let's do it.
What about the furniture carpet beetle?
All right.
Do they actually live in furniture?
Well, they can, especially if it's upholstered with natural fibers,
Right.
but they're not limited to furniture. You might find them in closets or storage areas, too.
Okay.
They're even smaller than the common carpet beetle,
Ah.
and they have a very distinctive spotted pattern.
Oh.
Yeah, yellow, white, and black.
So they're like the fashionistas of the carpet beetle world.
I guess you could say that.
All about those stylish spots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and finally we have the varied carpet beetle.
Yes, the varied carpet beetle.
What makes them varied?
Well, their coloring, for one thing, they have a mix of white, brown, and yellowish scales.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes them a little harder to identify just at a glance.
Okay.
But what's really interesting about these guys is their diet.
Don't tell me they eat varied things.
Well, they do, but get this. Their larvae actually prefer dead insects and spiders.
What?
Yeah.
So they're like the cleanup crew of the beetle world.
That's a good way to put it.
Wow, that's actually kind of cool.
It is.
So they might not be so bad to have around after all.
Right.
As long as I stick to munching on those creepy crawlies and leave my sweaters alone.
Exactly. And it highlights an important point. These beetles aren't all bad.
Right.
They play a role in the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
They break down organic matter. They contribute to nutrient cycling.
So they're part of a larger ecosystem,
Exactly.
even if that ecosystem happens to be our homes.
That's right.
It's all about perspective.
It is.
But let's be honest, most of us would rather not share our homes with these guys, even if they are helping with the cleaning.
I understand.
So what can we do to prevent them from setting up shop in our closets and pantries?
Well, first you need to understand that even the cleanest homes can be susceptible to these critters. Oh yeah, they can sneak in through cracks, vents, or even on clothes or packages brought in from outside.
Oh, wow.
But don't worry, there are definitely things you can do to minimize the risk.
Okay, let's hear it. I'm ready to evict these unwanted tenants.
Okay, well, the first line of defense is really just good old-fashioned cleanliness.
Okay.
These beetles love dusty, undisturbed areas.
Right.
So regular vacuuming and cleaning, especially in closets under furniture around baseboards, can make a huge difference.
Okay, so basically channel my inner Marie Kondo.
Exactly.
Give those beetles no place to hide.
That's the idea. And don't forget about your pantry.
Oh, right, the pantry.
Yeah, while carpet beetles are less likely to infest food, compared to other pantry pests, they can still be attracted to grains and other stored products, especially if there are spills or crumbs.
Okay.
So keep your pantry clean, and airtight containers are your best friend here.
Airtight containers, got it.
Yep,
So cleanliness is key.
it really is.
But what about those items that are more susceptible to damage? Like, my wool sweaters or my silk scarves.
For delicate items like that, proper storage is essential.
Okay.
So airtight containers or cedar chests are great options. You can also use mothballs or cedar blocks.
Right.
But be sure to follow the instructions carefully.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And I've also heard that freezing can be an effective way to kill beetles and their eggs.
It is.
Right.
Absolutely. If you suspect an item is infested, just seal it in a plastic bag and pop it in the freezer for a few days.
Okay.
The freezing temperatures will kill both the adults and larvae.
So it's like a deep freeze eviction notice
Exactly.
for those pesky beetles.
Uh-huh.
I love it.
Yeah.
But what if you've already got a full-blown infestation? Like, what are your options then?
Well, in severe cases, you might need to call in the professionals.
Okay.
Pest control companies have specialized treatments that can target specific pests, including carpet beetles.
Right, so that's the nuclear option. But
Yeah.
before we go there, the guide does mention some like DIY spray options.
They do.
Right.
Yeah, there are insecticide sprays specifically formulated for carpet beetles.
Okay.
But, as we discussed earlier, some species, like that tough black carpet beetle,
Right.
they can be pretty resistant.
So we need to be strategic about our spray tactic.
Exactly. The guide suggests using wetting agents.
Wetting agents.
Yes, in both oil and water sprays.
Okay.
And these agents basically help the spray penetrate the beetle's protective exterior and improve coverage.
So it's like giving the spray a little extra oomph
That's a good way to put it.
to get through those tough defenses.
Exactly. And it's important to target areas where the beetles are most likely to be hiding.
Right.
Under furniture, in closets, along baseboards,
All right.
those kinds of places.
So we've got our cleaning routine down.
Yeah.
Our delicate items are safely tucked away.
Right.
And we're armed with our beetle-busting sprays.
You got it.
Is there anything else we should be aware of?
One thing that often gets overlooked is the exterior of your home. Remember, these beetles can come from outside.
Yeah.
So it's important to seal any cracks or gaps that might be providing them with an entry point.
So it's like fortifying our homes
Exactly.
against a tiny beetle invasion.
That's right. And pay attention to areas around windows, doors, and vents.
Okay.
You can use caulk or weather stripping to seal those entry points.
Got it. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Prevention, identification, and even some control methods.
Well, yeah.
But I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the ecological role of these beetles.
Okay.
It's easy to get caught up in the pest aspect,
Right.
but they do have a place in the natural world, right?
They absolutely do remember those varied carpet beetles and their taste for dead insects. Well, that's just one example of how these beetles contribute to decomposition and nutrient cycling. They're part of a larger ecosystem,
Right.
even if that ecosystem happens to be our homes.
It's a good reminder that even those creatures we might consider pests can have a beneficial role to play.
I think so.
So it's not about eradication, but about coexistence.
Precisely. And sometimes that means making a few compromises.
Okay.
Maybe we accept a few tiny holes in our sweaters
Right.
in exchange for the ecological services these beetles provide.
It's an interesting perspective, and it leads me to another thought.
Okay.
The guide focuses on carpet beetles in Nevada,
Right.
but these guys are found all over the world, right?
Oh, yeah. Pretty much everywhere humans are.
So are there any other interesting species or variations that we should know about?
Absolutely. And just like with any group of organisms,
Yeah.
there's tons of variation from region to region.
I bet there are some real weirdos out there in the beetle world.
Oh, yeah. There are some really strange ones.
Like, what are some of the standout examples?
Well, there's this one species, the odd beetle.
Odd beetle.
Yeah, it's found in Europe, and because its larvae actually mimic ants.
They mimic ants.
They even produce pheromones that make ants think they're one of their own.
Whoa, so they're like infiltrating ant colonies.
Exactly. It's incredible camouflage. Helps them avoid predators.
That's amazing. So they're basically under deep cover.
Uh-huh. It just goes to show the incredible diversity of adaptations that exist in the insect world. You know,
Right.
it really makes you appreciate the complexity of even the smallest creatures.
It does, and it makes me wonder if there are beetles out there mimicking ants. Are there others with even more bizarre adaptations?
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Like beetles that glow in the dark, or maybe even ones that can fly underwater.
Well, glowing beetles definitely exist. Think fireflies.
Right.
But underwater flying beetles, that's a new one.
Yeah.
Although there are some aquatic beetles that can trap air bubbles under their wings,
Yeah.
which allows them to breathe underwater.
So basically, scuba diving beetles,
Pretty much.
nature never ceases to amaze me.
It really doesn't. And the more we learn about these creatures, the more we realize how much we still don't know.
It's like we've just scratched the surface of this hidden world of beetles.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fascinating. There's always something new to discover, something new to learn.
Well said. So to our listeners out there, I encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep an eye out for those incredible beetles, whether they're munching on your sweaters or mimicking ants in your backyard.
And remember, even the smallest creatures can teach us valuable lessons about adaptation, resilience, and the interconnectedness of life.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of beetles. Until next time, happy exploring.